let's get right to him. This man is the fired Google engineer. He'd sent a company-wide memo on diversity. His name is James Damore, and he's with us now. James, welcome to the program.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Am I right in saying that you were fired because you suggested that biology may be the reason why there are not more women in high positions in technology? You made that case. That's why you were fired, correct?
Correct.
Okay. What did you say about it? I mean, what reasoning did you give?
So the largest difference between men and women in personality is the differing interest in people versus things, and that's been linked to prenatal testosterone. And that difference plays a large role in occupational preference. So there are simply fewer women that are interested in technology.
Are you allowed to say, and I use that word cautiously, are you allowed to say in this day and age that there are fundamental differences between men and women in terms of personality? That's what you said, and that's why you canned.
Yeah, in some circles you can definitely say that, and for many it's common sense, but at least at Google there was a strong dogma that no, there are no innate differences. It's all due to sexism and differential treatment to women. And if we can only fix society, then we would have 50-50 representation. So it was sort of forbidden knowledge at Google, but it's common sense to many.
Well, another point that you made in your memorandum was that Google sort of aces out conservative thinkers and conservative points of view. Is that part of what you'd like to change?
Right, and there's many cases within Silicon Valley where we even have blacklists where if someone shows that they're a conservative, then they'll be blacklisted between different companies and different teams. And that really needs to change.
That would be the subject of a lawsuit, wouldn't it?
Well, a few months ago, James Damore learned the hard way what happens when you question the groupthink of Silicon Valley. While working at Google, the world's most powerful company, Damore privately circulated a paper questioning his employer's diversity policies. He didn't attack anyone, he just questioned the internal logic of what he was being told. For that, the company vilified him and his character and then fired him. Now, Damore and another ex-Google employee, David Guterman, are suing that company. They're accusing Google of systemic bias against white employees, men, and conservatives. Their 161-page lawsuit exposes a remarkable and terrifying climate at Google, a place where biased, hateful, and even violent political rhetoric is totally acceptable, just as long as it's directed against the right targets. The suit contains documents that shows Googlers openly maintain, for example, politically motivated employee blacklists. Here's one. In 2015, Google manager Paul Cowan wrote the following on Google's internal networks for all employees to see. If you express a dunderheaded opinion about religion, about politics, or about social justice, it turns out I'm allowed to think you're a halfwit. I'm perfectly within my rights to mentally categorize you in my D-head box. Yes, I maintain mentally, but not yet publicly, a blacklist. If I had to work with people on this list, I would refuse and try to get them removed. Well, the blacklists were real and not just internal. They also applied to conservative figures from outside the company. Blogger Curtis Yarvin, known online as Mencius Moldbug, once visited Google to have lunch with an employee. According to the suit, Yarvin's arrival triggered a silent alarm at Google. Security arrived to escort him off campus. His mere presence was considered unacceptable. According to the lawsuit, Google employees were awarded with bonuses by the company for publicly denouncing Damore's memo. In April of 2017, Google manager Chris Bissell advised employees if they spoke at conferences, they should do so only while demanding that white males from other companies be kicked off panels in favor of women or non-white employees. Quote, "You'll feel pretty damn smug about doing it," Bissell said. Google HR said Bissell's attacks on the basis of race and gender somehow broke no company rules. And that's just scratching the surface of what Damore has brought to light. The suit has more than 100 examples of employees and managers saying conservatives or Trump supporters ought to be fired, defending political violence, implementing quota systems to discriminate against white people and men to the benefit of other favored groups. It's intense, it's appalling, but don't kid yourself. It's not just happening at Google. Last night, Dennis Finley, who was an editor at the Burlington Free Press, was fired by the media giant Gannett because he dared to question Just question a proposal that would add a third gender option to driver's licenses in Vermont. Now, if you're conservative, it might be difficult to get your head around what is happening in this country. So much has changed. But here's the bottom line. The federal government is no longer the main threat to your privacy and to your freedoms. You've grown up thinking that it's no longer true. Big corporations are the main threat to your freedom and your privacy. The government doesn't own your private emails. Google does. Federal employees can't be fired for their political views. Private sector employees are all the time. The Trump administration can't end your ability to publicly communicate your ideas. Twitter and Facebook can do that, and they do it all the time. The Orwellian future is increasingly the Orwellian present, and tech barons are becoming our new commissars. Liberals who once admirably stood up for free expression and in opposition to concentrations of corporate power have been thoroughly co-opted. They're getting rich from it. James Damore has seen it all from the inside firsthand. He joins us now with his lawyer, Harmeet Dillon. Welcome to you both.
Happy to be here.
So, James, in reading these documents, what's so striking is not just that you got fired for expressing your views, and I want to restate, having read the piece that got you fired, you weren't attacking anybody, but you're raising questions. You got fired for that. But Google seemed to feel the need to vilify you after you got fired, to discredit you, to attack your character, and to encourage others to do the same. That seems Stalinist. Why did they feel the need to do that, do you think?
Because I attacked their orthodoxy, and they really need to send a message to other employees that, no, you can't do this. You can't question our policies.
Yeah, well, they certainly did, paying bonuses to people who denounced you, like a Khmer Rouge re-education session. So, Harmeet, in this complaint, you have example after example of Google targeting people on the basis of their race and their sex. My impression was that was illegal. Is it?
It is illegal. It's illegal under federal law. It's illegal under California law. And what a lot of lawyers even around the country don't understand, that under California law, we have a unique labor code provision that makes it illegal to discriminate against somebody on the basis of their political activities or their political views. So that is among the claims in our lawsuit. And that can actually affect a lot, and it has affected women at Google. So to be clear, our lawsuit actually includes women as well if they've been discriminated against on the basis of any of these protected characteristics.
But I mean, Google is the most powerful company in the world, the most famous company in the world, and they're doing this openly. I mean, on internal servers, they don't seem to have worried they were going to get in trouble for violating a pretty basic law. Why?
Well, so they're a $700 billion plus company. They are ubiquitous. They have virtual monopoly power over search engines, and they've been getting away with it for a long time. Now, probably you and I and some other conservatives have been alarmed about what we've read about Google being able to scan Gmail and keep all of your data. That's what's really troubling about this. They, at one time, know everything about you. And at the other hand, they're using that information against you. We've seen them do this in their commercial practices as well. The demonetization of viewpoints they don't believe in on YouTube and other places. And I'm hearing from people inside the company and people who've left the company that their artificial intelligence programs for search engines similarly are applying political biases and filters. And you and I wouldn't even know it. And eventually we're going to find that they're controlling what people think. They are. Obviously inside the company, they're getting away with punishing people and controlling what people think. And, people don't understand that on Silicon Valley, they have these campuses. And you come to the campus in the morning, they take care of your dry cleaning, all of your meals, entertainment, everything. And so people are in this little bubble. It's like the brave new world of Silicon Valley.
And that's fine, shocking. But the fact that they're controlling our political dialogue and the way people experience reality, and Congress just sits there passively as if they have no authority is contemptible. So, James, I would encourage, by the way, our viewers to go online and read what you wrote, because it's hardly radical, it's sensible and smart. Do you think that being at odds with Google is going to affect your future employment prospects?
Yes, definitely. And many employees have made it clear that they're spreading the message about not only me, but anyone that they've discovered that has certain viewpoints, to blackball them out of careers within Silicon Valley.
So why is that not terrifying?
Oh, I think it is.
Yeah, I mean, for every James Damore who got fired, Tucker, there are many people inside the company who we represent who are afraid to even raise their hand and say this is happening to me, because the threat is not just of a blacklist within Google, but of a blacklist within the entire tech community throughout the United States. That's how scary this is.
Social media, the mainstream media, Hollywood, and academia constantly bombard society with the narrative that white males, specifically right-leaning, conservative, and libertarian white males, are the cause of all the problems in society. That right-leaning white males hold institutional power, and that because they hold this power, it is impossible to be racist against them. The latter claim is clearly lacking. Racism is simply judging an individual by outward characteristics such as skin color. But what about the claim that conservative, libertarian, right-leaning white males hold institutional power? If this turns out to not be the case, what does this say about all of the people that have been going around blaming white people, specifically white men, for all of their problems, for all of the problems in society? According to CNN, Silicon Valley donated huge amounts of money to Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign and virtually nothing to Donald Trump. In fact, NBC News reported that Silicon Valley donated 60 times more to Hillary Clinton than to Donald Trump in the lead-up to the 2016 presidential election. And NPR reported that the Obama campaign had similar support from Silicon Valley in the lead-up to the 2012 presidential election. This 2015 email shows that Google CEO Eric Schmidt actively worked as a member of the Hillary Clinton campaign team. It's quite clear that Silicon Valley donates big time to progressive candidates. But is there any other evidence of left-leaning bias in Silicon Valley? In 2017, YouTube partnered with the ADL to censor videos that they claim contains hate speech. I wonder if James Damore's speech would be considered hate speech. The ADL, of course, is the left-leaning organization that declared Pepe the Frog racist. Let's see what type of videos they've demonetized since taking control. Christian white male Jordan Peterson was demonetized for daring to talk about his religious views. InfoWars reporter Paul Joseph Watson virtually had his entire YouTube channel demonetized. Conservative commentator Mark Dice has had a very similar experience to Paul Joseph Watson. And perhaps most egregious of all, Diamond and Silk had their YouTube channel demonetized for supporting Donald Trump while black.
But there are censorship-related issues to these things when it comes to someone's ability to make money, because we know that these two people have an audience. And by the way, our episode 2-3 weeks ago with Fleming Rose, the Danish publisher of the Muhammad cartoons, which is an incredible discussion, I hope you guys have checked it out, about free speech and tolerance and intolerance and a series of other things, YouTube demonetized that. They do not let us make money on that video. I think we're going to fight that, and we'll see what happens. But there was nothing close to hate speech in there. There was nothing close to anything that wouldn't be okay to be on network television and to be okay for an advertiser to lay a commercial over. We're talking about free speech and having a pretty, vanilla conversation about these things. There was no anger or anything like that, or certainly no hatred or bigotry or racism or anything gross or anything like that. Which also, by the way, is one of the reasons that for us to do what we do here, that's why Patreon is so important to us, because I can't be beholden. If every video that I did, I'd have to think, oh man, is YouTube going to demonetize us if we talk about this or that or whatever? And the things that they do demonetize often are some of the things that we talk about a lot, free speech and Islam and a few of these other things, right? So if I was completely beholden on that, it wouldn't be that they were censoring me, but we would start self-censoring ourselves, as many other channels have had to do if our whole livelihood was made off the YouTube money.
Twitter has resorted to similar censorship of conservative and libertarian thinkers. Milo Yiannopoulos, an openly gay Jewish conservative, has been permanently banned from Twitter. Twitter routinely censors news outlets like the Drudge Report. And of course, Twitter does all of this in the name of combating hate speech. But I would warn you to be careful, or one day it might be your hate speech. that they're banning. Just like Twitter and YouTube, Facebook has targeted conservative commentator Mark Dice. Facebook suspended Lauren Southern for criticizing censorship. They suspended a young black child for agreeing with Rudy Giuliani in his criticism of President Obama. And of course, how can we forget when whistleblowers informed us that Facebook adjusts its algorithms to prevent conservative news topics from trending?
A group of influential conservatives will gather today at Facebook's Silicon Valley headquarters. The highly anticipated meeting with CEO Mark Zuckerberg follows allegations that Facebook suppressed politically conservative stories from its trending topics. Jan Crawford is here. She is really here at the table. who will be.
And so happy to be here.
And so happy to be here. You have more on who will be there and who will not be in attendance today, Jan.
Well, that's right.
Welcome.
Thank you, Gail, and good morning. So Mark Zuckerberg, he has said he wants this to be a direct conversation about what Facebook stands for and how to keep the platform as open as possible. But those planning to attend this meeting, well, they say they want a better understanding of how Facebook decides what news stories its 1.6 billion users see as trending.
We can build something and make it better.
Mark Zuckerberg will have to answer today to leading conservatives as he tries to bat down allegations of anti-conservative bias within his social media empire. Among the expected attendees, senior Trump advisor Barry Bennett, former Senator Jim DeMint, and TV and radio host Glenn Beck.
I just want to listen. I want to look Mark Zuckerberg in the eye and get a gauge of him as a man and see, is he telling the truth?
Beck was one of the topics Facebook reportedly censored in its trending news section, according to a report by the tech news site Gizmodo. An anonymous former Facebook staffer told the outlet that Facebook employees manipulated user data to routinely suppress news stories of interest to conservative readers.
We have now clearly demonstrated that right-leaning, conservative, and libertarian white men do not hold institutional power in Silicon Valley. Progressives, or at least people who describe themselves as progressive, do hold institutional power and routinely discriminate against conservative thinkers. Let's see if this is also true in the mainstream media. A study conducted by the Center for Public Integrity found that 96% of media campaign donations went to the Hillary Clinton campaign in 2016. President Obama had similar success in media fundraising. Another study of people who work in sports media found that only 4% of media surveyed voted for President Donald Trump. And according to Politico, only 7% of reporters identify as Republican. Leaks from Wikileaks showed us this long list of reporters who colluded with the Clinton campaign during the 2016 presidential election. They include reporters from ABC, Bloomberg, CBS, CNBC, CNN, The Daily Beast, The Huffington Post, MSNBC, NBC, New Republic, The New York Times, The New Yorker, People Magazine, Politico, The Guardian, The Hill, Vice, Vox, and The Washington Post. The media routinely writes stories like this one from The New York Times. Can my children be friends with white people? Can you imagine if the title was, Can my children be friends with black people? But don't worry, according to Vice, there is no such thing as reverse racism or racism against white people. That's probably because white people have all of this institutionalized power. And of course, white people who are not part of the solution are part of the problem. I guess that's me. I'm part of the problem.
This was many things. This was a rebellion against the elites. True, it was a complete reinvention of politics and polls. It's true. But it was also something else. We've talked about race. We've talked about everything but race tonight. We've talked about income. We've talked about class. We've talked about region. We haven't talked about race. This was a white lash.
Because according to CNN, people only vote for race.
What do you say to the people who dragged a poor white guy out of a car and beat him?
Oh my goodness, poor white people.
You voted Trump! You voted Trump! Oh, yeah! Yeah! You voted Trump! Yeah!
Oh my goodness, poor white people.
This lone female Trump supporter tried to stand her ground. Her sign torn from her hands, her glasses ripped off and shoved in her face.
Poor white people.
During the student march, a 15-year-old Trump supporter was punched and kicked. He was taken to a hospital by ambulance. Our news partner at WTOP Radio took these pictures.
One of my friends, he was wearing his Make America Great Again hat.
Please, oh my, stop.
Stop doing violence upon other people. Stop doing violence upon neighborhoods. It doesn't
Hate crimes and I'm sorry, Kate. Hate crimes and protesting are not the same thing. The audacity of privileged white people to sit on national television and question if hate crimes are happening, to just flippantly say, stop it, it's not okay, and not put any action behind those words is appalling to me, really, Kate. It's actually appalling. We can't call for people to be peaceful when the rhetoric that has been used is not peaceful.
Isn't Donald Trump supposed to help you? Where's Donald? Nobody raping some bitch.
Poor white people, please, oh my, stop.
We have now established that right-leaning conservative and libertarian white males do not have institutional power in Silicon Valley, and certainly do not have institutionalized power in the mainstream media. But people who call themselves progressive, which I have routinely argued is regressive, have institutionalized power in social media and the mainstream media. Let's see what the case is when it comes to Hollywood. According to Time magazine, 90% of Hollywood political donations went to the Hillary Clinton campaign. The New York Times reported that Hollywood donations also tilted heavily to President Obama. In fact, according to OpenSecrets.org, President Obama received donations from 280 celebrities in 2012, compared to 30 to Mitt Romney. And how can we forget that Harvey Weinstein is a big-time donor to both Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton? In fact, being conservative in Hollywood is so toxic to your career that conservatives in Hollywood started a secret group called Friends of Abe so that they would not be outed as being conservative.
You went to the presidential inauguration, right?
I was invited by, we did a VIP thing for the vets and went to the Veterans Ball, and so I went to go see the Democrats and Republicans. Yeah, I went to the inauguration.
I'm not attacking you.
You get this down. I'm not kidding. You got to be real careful around here. You know, you get beat up. If you don't believe what everybody believes, this is like 30s Germany. I don't know what happened. If you're not part of the group, you know what we believe is right. I go, well, I might have a problem with that.
Tim Allen's top-rated show, Last Man Standing, was canceled shortly after he gave that interview.
Is the media and entertainment responsible for perpetuating a rape culture?
Yeah, I think the media is responsible for perpetuating a rape culture. And, you know, I mean, it's profitable for the people at the top who run the rape culture, you know, who run it, and, you know, they profit from it. And to say otherwise would be a big fat lie. But, so, you know, they don't want any kind of power shifted away from the way they have it set up in a very hierarchical manner with, you know, women's free labor at the bottom, largely slave labor, at the bottom of that big pyramid.
You've been a Hollywood insider for so long, yet you've been vocal for so long. I mean, how challenging is it to see your colleagues across Hollywood lacking for the Obama administration when they have so much power and influence that they could single-handedly shape the dialogue when so many people are watching them?
Well, I think that, you know, this is a culture of fear, and nobody's more afraid than people in Hollywood. They're afraid that they'll drop out of the top, you know. They're afraid that they'll drop from the bottom of the pyramid, maybe to the middle of the pyramid. But, you know, they're the ones, Hollywood is the one that keeps all this power structure and all this culture of racism and sexism and classism and genderism and all of it in place. They continually feed it, and they make a lot of money doing it. And they do it at the behest of their masters who run everything. So, you know, they're not going to get brave enough to do that. I mean, I think that there aren't many of us who are brave enough to do that. And I'm just, you know, I'm lucky that I can do it, and I feel that I do it on behalf of many people in Hollywood, too. I go to Hollywood parties, or, you know, occasionally I go to Oscar parties and things like that, and people, big stars, people will grab me by the arm and take me aside and say, I just want to thank you for the things you say. and it blows my mind, but that's the culture. It's a culture of fear for sure. And it's a big culture of mind control too. MK Ultra mind control rules in Hollywood. If you don't know, Google that and look into it.
Well, we've talked about Operation Mockingbird, MK Ultra mind control stuff this goes back decades and decades. But Roseanne, do you know people have been blacklisted? Is it just kind of a self-censorship in Hollywood, or do people actually get edged out if they are too much against the grain?
It's self-censorship after a while, but it's not just a crazy self-censorship. It's self-censorship because there's actually a danger that you will never work again. And people know it. Everybody has friends that it happened to, that maybe you said too much, or maybe you were too vocal on unpopular issues. And it's funny because it doesn't matter if 2 years later, I find this a lot, that 2 years later those unpopular issues become very mainstream. They still don't forgive the first person who does it. And that's kind of been my story there. When you're first, you're going to be vilified, despite the fact that 2 years later everybody's saying what you said. You're still going to be vilified because you dared. And like they say, the Chinese have a myth or a saying that says that the nail that stands up is hammered down, and that's how it is here and everywhere in the world. Right. You don't really want to put yourself at odds with people who decide your future and pay for your work. But sometimes you have to. And I was very lucky that I had a successful show that made me a lot of money, and so that I can do that. And I feel that I owe that to the people I came from, to say those things that maybe they can't say because they're afraid they'll be fired, or they're afraid even that they'll be put in jail or whatever. I'm going to do it because why not?
Could it be that Hollywood, social media companies, the mainstream media purposely push racial division, sex division for power and profit? We've already established that it is not conservative, libertarian, right-leaning white males who have institutionalized power in social media, in the mainstream media, in Hollywood. Let's take a look at academia. Professors who think they're liberal outnumber conservatives nearly 12-1 on college campuses. Left-leaning foundations like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, the Tides Foundation, the Kellogg's Foundations, the Soros Institute for an Open Society, donate billions of dollars annually to universities. And the universities push their progressive agendas.
Time now for campus craziness, and in that category, no school comes close to matching Evergreen College in Washington State. We've been in a coma for the last month. Here are the basics. Student activists sought to kick all white people off campus for an entire day. Brett Weinstein, who's a biology professor there and a self-described progressive, refused to leave. He said that was wrong. He was subsequently harassed by a mob howling for his job. Instead of sticking up for their colleague, meanwhile, dozens of Evergreen professors have called for Weinstein to leave, calling him the villain, demanding he be investigated. Professor Weinstein has relocated his family for their safety, but he joins us now, and we're grateful he has. Professor, thanks for coming on. So,
thanks for inviting me back, Tucker.
You're no longer on the campus of Evergreen. Why?
Well, the college has never acknowledged the danger that they put us in, and therefore I have no way of knowing whether it's safe for me to return. Their assurances that it is safe don't mean anything, not that they've offered them.
Not that they've offered them. No, it seems to me, and you and I have talked before, I doubt we share the same politics at all, but this seems a pretty cut and dried case of the defense of free expression. You had a point of view, and your right to have that ought to be sacrosanct, and I wonder, how many of your colleagues or others in academia have supported you in that?
Well, I've received tremendous support outside of the college, and I've received quite a bit of support privately within the college, but publicly, only one other professor has come forward to say he supports my position.
And what is your position, if you could sum it up for us?
Well, the issue is complicated. Let me start by just simply pointing out the protest of my class occurred because I sent an email to the staff and faculty email list protesting what we call day of absence. In this case, day of absence was being reversed by the organizing committee, and white people were asked to leave the campus. It was not that we were forced to leave, but we were asked to leave, and it was made very clear that leaving was an act of allyship with people of color, and therefore not leaving, if you were white, meant that you were not an ally.
And you refused to leave.
I did refuse to leave, and I sent a letter. I think it was very carefully stated, but it said that there was a tremendous difference between a population absenting themselves from a shared space and a population deciding to absent other people from that same space, and that on a college campus, people should be equally free to be on campus irrespective of their skin color.
Exactly. Amen. Which I thought was sort of a basic precept of American life. Do you plan to go back to Evergreen?
Well, I certainly have duties to finish this year, and I have no alternative employment, so my expectation is that I will have to go back. That said, it's not exactly clear how I can go back to a campus where the administration and the faculty have invested so heavily in demonizing me. At first they demonized me as a racist, and as it became clear that that was not resonating with people, they shifted their critique, and in fact have blamed my last appearance on your program for everything that has occurred at Evergreen since. So I don't know how I can go back and teach, given that I have been portrayed as the reason that Evergreen is in crisis.
It's just grotesque. And for the record, of course, all this happened before you came on our show. We asked you on because we saw it unfolding. I really hope a college, any college who wants a professor or principal will call you right after this appearance tonight. Professor, thanks for coming on.
Professor Brett Weinstein, a self-described progressive, was condemned for refusing to submit to skin color mandated segregation. And it's not the only time we've seen progressives eat their own on college campuses.
Listen, Bill O'Reilly in the Weekdays at Bernie segment tonight, fascism on some college campuses. As you may know, a variety of commencement speakers, including former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, have withdrawn from speaking at graduations because they were terrorized. The latest is a Democrat, Michael Johnston, state senator in Colorado, who students and alumni at Harvard's education school want to disinvite because he was perceived, or is perceived by some left-wing loons, as an anti-teacher union guy or something. Joining us from Miami, the purveyor of BernardGoldberg.com, Mr. Goldberg. So things are rapidly getting out of control. This is deja vu all over again from the late 60s, early 70s, when if you didn't agree with Abby Hoffman and Jerry Rubin, you couldn't even talk on some college campuses. It's going on now, right?
Right. The lunatics, once again, are taking over the asylum. What makes this breathtakingly repulsive, in my view anyway, is that these are the same people who are always lecturing us about diversity and how you can have a good education on a college campus without diversity. Obviously, they're not talking about ideological diversity. They're not talking about diversity of opinion. These are left-wing authoritarians. These are liberals who have forgotten how to be liberal, if they ever knew in the first place.
And then, of course, we've seen university-approved violence to prevent conservatives from speaking all over the country. The reason I say it's university-approved is if universities wanted to stop it, they would just make an announcement. If you're seen committing violence, you're kicked out of school.
Hey guys, so I just got back from the absolute insanity that was the Berkeley Free Speech Rally. I have pepper spray in my eyes still. This is not a good time. Woo!
I tried to get you out of it.
Oh, what's worse is I think I got trapped in the goggles.
Oh, is that what happened? Oh, here.
My ears are ringing from an M80 that bounced off my helmet and onto the ground beside me.
Oh my god, it hit me!
You're good.
Yeah, I'm good.
Let's back up one more.
I managed to dodge bricks, bagels, sticks, and signs and all sorts of things and have come back in better shape than a lot of people, hoping to tell you what actually went down at this event before the media can go ahead and spin it for you. If you walk through the streets of Berkeley, the entire damn place is covered in signs that say Antifa zone and even communist spray paint. It is infested with radicals, and as a result, anyone who tries to hold any sort of right-wing event literally gets beat up by militant communists in the streets. As seen before, time and time again, with Milo events or the last Base Stickman rally, they are always there ready to shut it down. So instead of backing down this time and being censored because of violence, Trump supporters said, no more, screw it. Not only are we not going to be silenced, but we are going to fight back when you try to hit us. I do think it's important to note, though, that the organizer of this event, Rich Black, and all the other amazing people that worked on it, did do their best to make sure that this event wouldn't get to the point that it did. We were in contact with the police, who assured us, word for word, we would be impressed with the police presence there. But that in order for them to protect us and such, we had to follow guidelines and not have pepper spray, sticks, or fighting equipment, or anything of that sort, so we disarmed. And of course, as usual in Berkeley, at the first sign of violence from Antifa, the police disappeared. They were gone. They went and they literally hid in their police cars.
They're so safe. They're so safe. Thanks for protecting and serving. You guys did a great job today.
They had their bulletproof vests on, their sticks, their guns. They were good to go in a riot situation with their shields, while we were totally disarmed because of the laws and rules and guidelines we had been given. And we were disarmed while we were being maced and having explosives and rocks thrown at us by psychotic radicals. So while I do normally support the police in this case, what the hell? I don't understand. But luckily, with a combination of stupidity from Antifa and strength from Trump supporters, we managed to push Antifa back because these complete and utter dumbasses set off a smoke bomb while the wind was going in their direction. And here's what happened.
Smoke. Forget all about it. Smoke. Smoke the smoke. What is fucking dick shit?
This is the type of violence that right-leaning people have to deal with just to speak on college campuses. In the video that follows, you'll see Nazi Jew Ben Shapiro attempting to speak at DePaul University.
The group certainly knows I'm coming. I RSVP'd with as somebody listening in the audience. I RSVP'd as a speaker, and I RSVP'd as security. So if you have any other standards of RSVP that are necessary, I'm happy to fulfill those.
Give us 1 second.
Sure.
Please.
Alrighty. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. How are you doing today?
Yeah, doing okay.
A little chilly, but it's November, right?
Seems like a lot of security for no protesters.
Pretty security.
Let him speak.
How are you, sir? Sure. Oh. How are you?
I'm the head of public safety.
Nice to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you. You know that you weren't registered, whatever, for the group didn't register for the event. They have strict things, so you're not allowed, into the event.
Well, I mean, YAF did inform you that I was coming as a speaker, as a person sitting in the audience, as well as a member of Christina Hoff Summers' team. So I'm not sure what other standards are necessary. I'm also wondering exactly why it's so necessary to keep me personally out.
We're just following protocol, sir.
Why is your protocol to keep me specifically out?
What country protocol? Soviet Union or United States?
Do you want to step over here to decide?
Well, I'm happy to do it right here if you'd like. I mean, I don't think this needs to be private.
The bottom line is it's private property, okay? Proper procedures weren't followed, and you're not going to be allowed to.
So am I to understand that if I take 3 steps forward, you will attempt to have me arrested?
If you create a problem and you will not, leave the campus, yes.
Okay, so just to be clear, if I attempt to enter that hall right there and sit down just to listen to somebody speak, or if I attempt to ask a question or to engage in free speech, you will have me arrested.
At this point, yes, sir.
Okay. I'm glad that we've clarified that situation. I'm also glad that in a city, clearly you have great security. I'm glad in a city that has some 4,000 shootings to this date, you have 30 members of security just for a 5'9", 165 Jewish guy. This is maybe a mild allocation of resources. Well, okay. Well, if that's the way we're going to do this, then we'll just do the event elsewhere, folks. So follow us.
speaking engagement with the polarizing Breitbart editor had been planned for quite some time. Police had anticipated the crowd and the protest, but before this event could even begin, it was shut down because of a fiery clash.
The protest quickly turned violent. Demonstrators set fires, smashed windows, and destroyed property at UC Berkeley. Anticipating trouble, police appeared to use flashbangs and pepper spray to clear the surging crowd of 1,500. All of UC Berkeley locked down, students sheltering in place as protesters moved downtown. There were brawls in the street. The chaos on campus began before Milo Yiannopoulos was set to speak at Cal.
Our Free and Equal segment tonight. If you thought UC Berkeley's war on free speech ended with Ben Shapiro's appearance on campus, think again. The campus was set to be home to a 4-day event called Free Speech Week, with appearances from people like Milo Yiannopoulos and Steve Bannon, among others. That is, until the Liberal administration canceled the event. Our next guest was scheduled to speak there. With me now, author and conservative strategist David Horowitz. David, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Liz.
All right, David, this is kind of a big deal that Free Speech Week was canceled because essentially, if you condense it all into a nutshell, it means that Antifa, the radical anarchist group that uses violence to purport their political agenda, they successfully stifled the free speech of many Americans.
Of course, because they're supported by faculty. Look, this has been going on for 30 or 40 years. First, they purged conservatives from the faculties. Then they purged, there are no conservative books. They're not assigned in the courses. Conservative ideas. You couldn't be in women's studies, for example, and be a conservative. And starting around 2001, when they threw oranges at Ann Coulter at Cornell, they've gotten violent in trying to shut down even invited speakers to campus. And now, this is the second time I was scheduled to speak at Berkeley, and I graduated from Berkeley. I actually was a radical at Berkeley. These are fascists. This is a very frightening development, and it has the support of the university administration. The chancellor, I applauded the new chancellor. She came in, she said, "We are free speech," and then she just betrayed that. It's terrible. I mean, Milo did appear there, but he didn't have a microphone, and the police kept his supporters off campus.
We have now established that social media, the mainstream media, Hollywood, and academia are not controlled by conservative or libertarian right-leaning white males. Institutional power is wielded by progressives, or at least those who describe themselves as progressive, and it has been for a long time. And conservative, right-leaning, libertarian white males are routinely discriminated against and censored. So let me ask you, if people who describe themselves as progressive are discriminating against conservatives, against libertarians, against white males, what does it say about people who go around blaming white males for all of their problems, calling white people evil? Would you say that might be a little bit racist? Food for thought. I really appreciate your support. If you wanted to support this operation, www.patreon.com/FFRnews. As little as $1 a month makes all the difference in the world to me. I love exposing these cultural paradigms and showing people that what the mainstream media depicts, what Hollywood depicts, what academia tells them, what social media presents is not reality, but the reality they try to shape for all of us.